Hello everybody. Today we're going to be working on a project that I've been wanting to do for a while, just haven't got around to doing. We are going to make a cowboy squirrel. So the first step we got to do to this project is get this rabbit skinned. So normally I skin stuff kind of down the back of the legs. Today I'm going to actually kind of go more on the belly, do a horizontal cut here. I should be able to hide that very well with this mount. Just the back of the legs are going to be very prominent with this mount, with them kicked up like that. So this inner part here is going to be way more hidden, so that's where I'm going to make my cut there, because it'll be easier to hide. So I'm going to go kind of spread the legs out like this. I'm sort of right in the middle of the meaty part of the upper part of the leg here. And just go straight across, right kind of in line with the top of his nuts. Go in there. Rabbit hide is very thin, so you gotta be gentle with it while you're skinning it. You want to make sure you're not pulling too hard at the wrong time, or you're gonna rip it, which just makes more sewing. So try and be gentle with it if you can. Then we're going to start kind of working our way back. Get to the nuts, make sure you pop those out. You don't want to leave that inside there. You want to make sure that's removed. One. There's the other one. Again, be gentle with it. I'm gonna gotta cut them off like that. We're actually gonna just remove those entirely. Get them out of our way, and we'll just keep working our way backwards. When you get to the butthole, you gotta make sure you leave enough meat on the hide, so you're not ending up with a big gaping hole. You can always trim more off during the fleshing process, but you can see this, the colon here, I'm gonna cut it quite a bit back. Make sure I don't end up with a bigger butthole than it already has, and I'll trim some more of that off while we're fleshing it, but we'll just make it a little bit easier in the end, where we're not having to do extra sewing around that area. So now we're down towards the tailbone here, so I'm just going to work my fingers around it. That, and it should just pull out of there relatively easily because they have a fairly short tail. So there's the tailbone there. So now we're left with our tail right here. And we're just going to keep working this back gently. On this side here, we're gonna go back far enough, and then I'm actually gonna cut the back legs off because I can pull them out afterwards, and this will leave this entire back leg like a tube, so there's not gonna be any sewing on the back of the leg. So let's cut down through there, and then we're gonna use that leg to make a new leg when we come later on in this project. So find the joint, cut down through it, like that. Just keep working your fingers around, make sure you get all the way around that leg so you're not cutting the hide while you're doing this. So there's one. Once you get the one, the other one's easier because you have a little bit more flexibility and room to work. Got my fingers all the way around there. Now same thing, just start cutting through the meat. Find the joint. Right there. Pull this down, and then I'm actually going to go hang this guy up to do the rest of the skinning, so it'll be a lot easier to do this with him hanging. You can just keep doing it like this if you don't have the... Whoa! Apparently you got a full bladder. You can just keep working it down like this if you don't have somewhere to hang it from, but if you have somewhere to hang it from, it's a lot easier. So I'm going to go get this guy hung up, and then we'll keep skinning it. So I've just got a kind of a slip knot with the cable here attached to my winch. What's nice about hanging it like this is now I have both hands totally free to work on it. I'm not trying to also hold it with one hand and pull, and it just takes one step out of the process. So I'm gonna keep slowly working this hide down. You can see I got a bunch of trauma right here. So you want to be gentle around areas like that so you don't rip any holes. I'm not sure if there's how big any holes are in this hide, but you don't want to work them any bigger than they already are, so just be gentle anywhere you see damage. I think there's the hole right there, so keep working that all the way down. You don't need to use your knife a lot of the time with rabbits. You should be able to just pull it, but if you do, don't hesitate to use your knife. But so these front legs, we're going to pull them up as much as we can for now. We'll do a bit more after, but again, you want to be really gentle with this. If you pull on that too hard, you will potentially even rip the whole front leg right off of it, so you want to avoid that if you can. We're actually going to cut those front legs right off, same as we did with the back. We're going to need those to model our front legs off of. So. That. When we get to the head, again, you have this where you'll want to use your knife a lot. And just be gentle and pull. But again, don't pull too hard, you'll rip the head right off the rabbit. So. Right here you can feel with your finger when you're doing this, there's the ears. You can see here's the hide line here. So when you're cutting the ears, you want to make sure you're not cutting right where this line of the hide is. You want to cut back here, otherwise you're going to have a huge hole where that ear is. You want to cut back 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch more where the ear attaches to the skull. Back there, rather than right in line with where the hide's getting pulled off. Because if you cut it too far forward, you're gonna end up with a huge hole right in the base of the ear, and it's not gonna look good. So give yourself lots to work with. Keep working that down. We should come to the eyes fairly quickly. So there's the eye right here. So again, cut kind of at the back of the eye socket. Keep working that down. Do the other one, do the other one as well. Keep the pressure on it. And then once you can see kind of the whole eye, then you can kind of slowly start working your knife forward. So you end up with the eye hole the way it's supposed to look. If you're not careful, you're going to end up with an eye hole that's way bigger than it needs to be, and that's going to be hard to fix. So be careful with it, go slow, so you don't want to have that happen. There's the cheek, so you can just kind of cut straight through that cheek. And with this side here, cut the nose down a little bit more. Work the lower jaw. And just keep kind of going around and just working it all the way around and around and around until you get to the end. So there's the lower jaw done. We're almost here. There's the nose. So there's our whole rabbit skinned out. We just got to work on the legs now. Skin the back leg. We're just going to hang it up by the cable, and we're going to just slowly work our knife around. Keeping some gentle pressure on there as we do. You don't want to pull too hard or it's going to split. But you got to pull hard enough to keep it under tension. So it's kind of a balancing act. Just keep working with your knife around. Keep that light tension on there. Just keep pulling on it. Rabbits are a little different because their whole foot is huge and bigger than a lot of their legs. So most mammals you can kind of pull down relatively easily without ripping the hide, whereas a rabbit you got to be a little more careful just because of that size difference with the foot to the leg. So we're getting to the joint here. Once you get past the joint, it's a little easier to deal with. So you're going to start coming into some of the kind of the connective tissues for the bottom of the foot where all the tendons are. So you got to make sure you cut through those as you skin it down. Try and keep as much of them on the leg as you can, as opposed to on the hide. If you leave any on the hide, it's not a huge deal. You can clean them off afterwards, or if they're just minor, they can dry anyway. But the less it's on there, the better. Keep working. Oh, see there, we got a little bit of a split going. Not too bad, so I'm not too worried about it, but it's something you got to keep in mind as you keep going forward, is you don't pull that too hard, because you don't want it to get any worse than it already is. So here we're getting to the toes. Working that down to the toes. You can see the toe joints right here starting to pop up, so put your knife in between the toes, gonna pull it down. I'm probably gonna call it about there. I'll cut through all those joints. That. So we'll have a little bit of sewing to do on that hole, but that's not too bad. You can skin these toes down further if you want, but with a rabbit there's not a whole lot of meat on there, so I like leaving those because it gives a little bit of something in that toe still to fill it out. So I'll get the other back leg skinned and then we'll move on to the front legs. Okay, front leg, same idea as the back leg. Just slowly work your knife around, keeping that pressure on there. Again, rabbit feet are quite a bit bigger than the arms coming through, so I'm gonna be a little more gentle with it than some other animals, and the hide is also way thinner, so it just splits way easier. But just go slow with it. You shouldn't have too many problems. Super easy to get rammy with it when it feels like it's going, but you gotta pull and then stop and cut and pull and go and stop. If you just keep pulling, you'll pop the foot right off of it, so try and avoid that as best you can. There's also a little dew claw right here you gotta cut through. If you don't, again, you'll either pull the toe right off of it or it'll hang up and split, so neither one of those are desirable outcomes, so just make sure you split that one off before you get down to the rest of the toes. There, we're at the knuckles, so we'll just split between all those. Split through the actual joints. So I'll get the other one skinned and we'll move on to the next part. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is split the ears. So normally I would, for a rabbit this size, I'd put them on something like a mink board. But currently we are in the middle of moving. So most of my stuff is in boxes, packed up. So all I have available is this Fox Fisher board. A little bit big, but we'll make it work. So split the ears, essentially just keep circling around the ear cartilage like this. And then slowly turning that ear inside out. So I'm going to get them both started here. And I'll pull them off the board. I find it's easier to get the ears started when they're kind of stretched out like this. And then after that we can we'll pull them off the board and finish the ears, but we'll get them started now. So you kind of just start working at all the meat ball at the bottom of it here. Start working that around. You're kind of going up the outside of the ear, I guess for lack of a better term. Like this is the inside of the ear here. If you keep skinning down here, you're going to find the hole, and you're going to cut a hole through where the ear hole actually is. This is like the back, kind of like, I guess, the part of the ear that'll be next to your head if it was your ear. This is the side that you're turning it on. So just keep kind of working that around. And then we'll keep doing this once we get them off of here. But once we get these both started, I'll probably flesh the rest of this guy before we take him off of here, and then we'll finish up the ears. But this is how you start splitting the ear there. So again, just be very careful with it because hide's very thin. Rabbit ears are not the most durable thing in the world, so don't pull on it real hard. But we'll call that for now. I'll grab the flesher and we'll start scraping this guy. There's not too much on a rabbit. There's just a few spots here. There's some fat buildup. But generally speaking, rabbit hide will dry very easily without a whole lot of assistance. But we're gonna borax this thing all up anyway, and that's gonna dry it out really, really good. Under the armpits here, there's a bit of fat buildup, so make sure you get that. This kind of thin membraney part here, you don't really need to worry about that. That'll all dry without pulling it off. You risk cutting hair roots and things like that if you start scraping it too much. So you just want to get the big fat chunks off and meat chunks off. The rest of it will all dry, and you don't have to worry too much about rotting or anything like that. So there, that's pretty much all we got to do with that. So I'll get this guy pulled off and we'll finish those ears up. Alright, so what I've done is I've taken my steel. I'm actually going to kind of poke that up into the ear like this so I can help keep pressure from the inside as I work my knife around. Just very carefully, gently. Keep working that all the way till you get to the end. Be very careful you don't blow it right through the end of the ear, because that's somewhat problematic. As long as you keep that pressure on there, you can kind of see where the white membrane pops up between both layers of the ear, and that's where you want to cut. You can kind of feel with your finger, you can feel where the edges are. We're starting to get pretty close to the end here, so clean up the seam a little bit. So I'm gonna call it at that. There's still a little bit more there, but honestly the risk of splitting it is bigger than not. Like there's not a lot on a rabbit ear that's gonna rot or anything like that. So I'm gonna call it at there. I'll get the other one done up, and we'll move on to the next part of this thing. At this point, I've got the entire rabbit's flesh, the ears are turned, I got the legs all turned right back first side out. So this rabbit has quite a bit of blood kind of matted throughout the fur, so I'm gonna give it a wash. So for that, I've just got some kind of room temperature water with a bunch of salt in it. And we're just gonna put this rabbit in there and give him a good scrub. Get all that blood out of there. Rabbit fur is very, very fine, so it's hard to get the blood out of it just with baby wipes or something like I would normally spot clean things. It's a little harder, you kind of have to actually wash it. So I make sure I use salt water because that's gonna help kind of preserve the hide a little bit, rather than just soaking it in pure water. The salt will kind of help lock some of that hair in a bit. It's not as good as salting the entire thing, but we don't really need to do that for this this hide. So there's a bit of fat ball there. Where am I at here? Oh yeah, there we go. See there's a big chunk of meat we missed right by the testicle, so I'm gonna get that cleaned out of there. Going back to when I mentioned when we were doing the skinning that it's important to leave extra fat and meat around that back part so you don't end up with a big gaping hole. It's equally as important to go back and make sure you actually clean that up afterwards, which I forgot to do during the fleshing process, which happens from time to time. So, but we got her now. So let's take a look at this guy, see what we're dealing with. It's looking better. Yeah, that's looking way better, way more clean. So I'm gonna get this guy wrung out, and then I will let him kind of drip dry while we get the form made. And then I'll give this guy a quick blow dry to dry the fur off a bit. And then we're just about ready to start actually mounting this part of it. While we're waiting for the hide to dry after washing it, we're going to start working on the form. So for that, we're going to use wood, wool, and twine. To start off, I'm going to take some fairly heavy duty wire. And we're going to go with the front leg first. The front legs are what's going to support the whole mount, so that's why I want to use this fairly heavy duty wire. We're going to bend that roughly in kind of the shape we want it. Make sure we leave about 1.5 inches or so extended past the end of the toes. That's where we're going to anchor that into our board. And then probably about 4.5, 5 inches or so past the top. That's what we're going to use to anchor into the actual form of the body. So somewhere in about there. And then we're going to take our wood wool and we're going to start building up the form here. So I'm just going to stick that through this, probably a little bit too much. And then just start wrapping it with it's just some heavy duty thread. Normally I have a spool that holds that, or a stick that holds that spool, so it just keeps on spooling, but again, all my stuff is packed up for moving, so we're just gonna leave that on the floor and hopefully it doesn't get tangled. So I'm gonna wrap this fairly tight because you can see, especially with the front legs, there's not a whole lot to them. So you want it to be tight so you can actually fit it back into the hide. And as well, when it's more dense, it's gonna hold its shape a lot better. So pull that up a little bit there. And just keep comparing as you go. Make sure you're getting it the right size and shape. I like using the wood wool over, say, like carving a form out of foam, just because it's a lot more flexible. So you have, especially in a mount like this where it's going to be fairly dynamic, or I might have to do a lot of adjustments to get it to really sit right. I find that the wood wool gives you that ability to make a lot more adjustments rather than using foam for the whole thing. It doesn't necessarily bend as well, so the wood wool just gives you that flexibility if you're not entirely sure how you want it positioned. So pull that down a little bit. That's looking pretty good. So when you look at this, I'm not putting the wood wool all the way down to the bottom. The bottom part I'm going to actually fill with clay so that I can kind of mold into the toes and everything else. So I'm not using that wood wool all the way to the bottom, just kind of down, leaving myself probably bottom 2 inches-ish will be filled with that clay, just so I can kind of mold the feet to be the proper shape. So there's one. So it's the exact same process with the other 3 legs. So I'm gonna get those all done and then we'll start working on the body. I got all the legs made. Here's the rear legs there, both the front legs here. So now it's time to start working on the body. So for that, I've got a foam head that I've made here. It'll fit pretty much perfectly there. We just got to make this part here. So to do that, just going to do the exact same process again. Grab a bunch of wood wool, grab our string, and just start wrapping it up. And this you want to make as tight as possible, because that's what's going to give this foam its rigidity, or form its rigidity, so it'll actually hold the shape you want it to be. If you do this too loosely, then the whole thing's going to be floppy and you're not going to have much luck. So you got to make sure you're wrapping this quite hard. Make sure that it's actually going to hold itself in the shape you need it to be. So I kind of get the rough shape mostly with the length first, and then I'll start filling in where it needs it after that. So roughly like that. There we go. And just start filling it in. So now this back part needs a bit more, so we're going to do that. And belly for sure. It's looking good already. It's looking really good. Could fill up the chest a little bit more. One of the things I really like about wood wool is you can custom make this exactly the size you need it to be, as opposed to buying a commercial form. I find it's a lot easier to modify a wood wool form. Just add more, or if it ends up being too big, just take some off. It's you're not having to like cut and glue and wait for the glue to dry and then test fit it again and realize it's still not the right size and do it over and over again. With the wood wool, it's super quick to adjust it to get it to be the exact size you need it to be. This is looking really good at this point. Just gonna add a little bit right kind of in the middle of the back there. And this part will be done. Just like that. So that's looking really good. Okay, now to attach this head, I'm going to take a wire, run a wire through the length of the whole body. So that's going to give me the ability to bend it however I need it to be to hold its shape. So again, I'm going to use a pretty stiff gauge of wire. About there. There. Give that a bit of a point. I start at the tail end. I'm just going to feed it all the way through so it comes out where you want it to, or about there. The tail end, I'm just going to bend over a little bit more than that, like this, and stick it back through, and that kind of locks that into place. And then I'll take our head, cut a bit of this wire off. we're going to super glue that head onto there. So that's going to be about there. So that's going to go roughly there. A bit of super glue on that wire. It doesn't take much, just to hold it in position while we're getting everything put together. Just like that. So there is our body made. Last thing I do before I clean all this up is I'm going to mark on my form where the arms attach and the legs, so that once I'm starting to put this thing all together again, I'm marking everything and putting it in the right spot. So it's all even. So. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna get this cleaned up and then we're gonna go start working on the hide again. Time to get this hide in borax. So that I've just got this little container. I'm just gonna put the whole hide in there with the first side in. Just make sure I get a really good coating over the whole thing. Down in the legs. Some down all of those. You're gonna open it with your finger and just poke down in there and let the borax flow all the way down to the bottom. You can get the borax in the hair as well, it's not gonna hurt anything. It'll all blow out afterwards. Borax works really well, especially with thin-skinned animals like rabbits. They'll dry out pretty well on their own regardless, but with those thin-skinned guys, it really works well to preserve it. So. That. Pull these front legs out a little bit. Borax on all those. I'm just going to flip them first side out for a second. And some borax all on there too. Just helps dry out all the leather from both sides. Like I said, we can take the air compressor and we're going to blow all this out of there when it's dry anyway, so it's not going to hurt anything. Make sure you get both front paws really good. There. Alright, I'm going to take this guy and go shake him out. Gonna get all the extra loose stuff off of him. And then we're gonna get those ears glued up, and then we're just about ready at that point to start putting them on the form. Normally when I'm gluing the ears on an animal, I'll use Bondo. However, with a rabbit, because the skin is so thin, that blue Bondo will show through it really, really well. So instead, I use white glue. Just take some on a Q-tip, and get that covered a bit, and we'll flip it and put some more in there after that. So it's not quite as stiff as Bondo, obviously, but not having to deal with the blue coloring on the ears is a huge bonus. So get a little bit in there, and I just kind of reach up inside here Just poke that ear, and I'll get it pulled out. And we'll put some more glue in there after that. There's that ear. You can see that skin in there is super thin. So we're gonna reach down inside there with our glue, and we're gonna put a little bit more glue now that we're all the way turned. And we're gonna put that right down up in the ear. Get that glue all the way down in there. And that's going to help hold that ear together and help hold its shape while it's drying. So we will do the same on this one. A little bit of glue to start. Mostly around the edges. And then start pushing that ear in. You just kind of keep pushing it in. So you can see it starting to pop through here, and then just gently keep working it. It goes all the way. And then we're going to add a little bit more glue into that one. All the way down in there. Just like that. And the last thing we're going to do before we start putting this guy on the form is we're going to grab some super glue and just glue these lips together where they're supposed to be. So I'm going to get the super glue and we'll get that done. So glue these lips together and find the middle, which is right there. Put that kind of roughly where it's supposed to be. Just put a little dab of super glue. That. Kind of tuck those lips where they're supposed to be here. We're just going to glue that inner mouth together. Trying hard not to glue ourselves to the rabbit. There. So we'll let that dry. And we're going to go get the eyes set into our form. And then by the time we get that done, this guy will be ready to put onto the form. Okay, so for the eyes, I've got a couple glass eyes that I painted the back of the eye dark brown, and then I put some paint on the actual form as well, so it helps blend that eye in. So now I'm just going to build some clay up around the edge of that eye. I don't go too fancy with it, honestly. I do most of the molding of it once I actually have the hide pulled over. I just get some there so I have a little bit of something to work with. If you want to spend time and mold it all and make it look super pretty, you can, but I honestly haven't found, for myself anyways, any major advantage to taking a crazy amount of time with it. Just get the clay there and use your fingers once the hide's on there and form it where you want it to be. And I found it's, for me anyways, the end result is just as good and way less time consuming. So. So that's about all I'm going to do with that for now, just get the clay there. So to get this started, I'm going to take my steel, I'm going to poke that down the leg. If you want, you can open the leg up. It's just going to require some sewing after the fact, so trying it this way, seeing if I can avoid any sewing on the legs. We'll see how it goes. I may have to end up opening up a little bit, but if you can avoid it, it's just less work. So get this guy down the bottom here. Start pushing that clay down into there, right down in the bottom of the foot. Squish that clay down up in there. You can feel the clay moving. All the way up into the front legs. Okay, so I'm gonna now try. Let's get this guy down in there. That wire right through, all the way through the paw. I'm going to pull this all the way down. Careful not to rip it. Like that. So now I'm going to go do the other one. Now I just got to do the back ones, which should be a little bit easier because they're quite a bit bigger. We're just going to do the same thing we did on the other ones. We're going to put our steel down into that leg. Kind of open it up. This is the one that's got that little hole in it. That kind of roll it into a tube. Drop our clay down inside there. Start working that down so it gets into the bottom. Just keep doing that till we get the feet all filled up. To get this rear leg in, I put a little bit of masking tape around the bottom part of the foot. And that's gonna help that slide down in there a little bit better. Sometimes with these narrow legged animals like this rabbit, that wood wool kind of binds up on it a little bit, so obviously have to do a lot of shaping on these feet, but put that down in there. Pull that hide up just like that. There. So now we got all the legs in, we can get the body attached now. So start with that. And turn him all the way inside out. Put a bit of glue around the mouth area of the form. That's just going to help lock everything in position once we get it on there and pinned. So we're going to start there. And start kind of pulling that hide over top of it like a sock. That down slowly, it pops out. There we go. And our first arm, we're going to point that through right where our mark was. Bend that over. Lock that into place. And the second one is going to go through this side. That. Same thing, we're going to bend that over. Lock that into place. I'm just going to take some tape. Run a couple wraps of tape around here. Keep those wires where they're supposed to be. Keep working this down. Back legs here, same thing. This one here is going to go through, and this one here, just make sure they're not all twisted up before you poke it through. So for this one, I'm just going to shrink this up a little bit. Down in there, and this one will do the same. Through here, shrink it up. Lock that into place at the back there. tail over. And now our rabbit is starting to take shape a little bit here. So before we worry too much about the back end, I'm going to get this front end put into position while that glue is still wet. Make sure the eyes are back where they're supposed to be. I'll probably have to do a bit of filling in just to fill him out because he's a little bit loose, but overall that is starting to take shape really nicely. Perfect. So I'm gonna grab some pins and get this face all pinned into place, and then we'll start sewing up the back. First thing I'm gonna do is get the eyes pinned, and then I can kind of get the nose squared up between them. So that I'm gonna take my tucking tool, start tucking those eyes, all that inner eyelid around the clay. And put a couple pins the front and the back, and I can kind of shape the eye after that. You don't have to get these perfect right off the hop, as long as you can get them roughly symmetrical. As it dries, you can always adjust as necessary. With the eye, I'm going to start tucking all this inner eyelid part back inside there. Trying to get it underneath the clay if you can. And make sure you look. Make sure everything is all symmetrical. Close as you can anyway. Good. Perfect. And once I get that, then I'm going to start pinning the mouth and where the eyes are. I want that nose. When you're looking at it straight on, you want to make sure everything looks completely even. Put one pin kind of in the forehead here. One sort of back here, just to hold that ridge between the eyes that I want to keep. And keep working with your fingers to get that nose kind of positioned where you want it to be. Somewhere. Tuck that all in. Throw a couple pins in that, hold it where I want it. pull the mouth bits kind of together so it's more or less what a rabbit looks like. It's good to have reference photos as well if you're not entirely sure how something's supposed to look. We have no shortage of reference photo availability nowadays, so just Google it and you can find pretty much anything you're looking for. So pin the mouth just to make sure that stays even as it's drying. I like using lots of pins just because I don't want anything to move while it's drying, so I like using lots of them. You don't want to use that many, you don't have to, but to each their own. That glue popped out of there, that's okay. Sometimes you'll get some of that glue will pop out, just get rid of it. Double check, make sure everything looks even. Nose looks even, mouth looks even. Let's come up a little bit. Basically, the biggest thing is symmetry. As long as it's symmetrical, it's gonna look pretty good. So that's looking really good, I think. At this point, a couple pins in there just to hold that kind of where the snout widens out the rest of the face. Good. So at this point, I'm gonna let that sit. So we'll pin the ears out afterwards, but right now we're going to add a little bit of filling in here just to widen out the body a smidge, and then we're going to sew this up and we can actually start positioning this thing. Okay, fill this guy out. I'm just going to take some cotton batting and just kind of, just in the stomach area, I'm going to put a little bit on both sides. I like the cotton batting because it's fairly soft, but it's also got some sponginess, I guess, for lack of a better word, to it. So it kind of pushes out and it fills out the belly. I feel like in a somewhat natural looking manner. As opposed to something a little more rigid. Good. Maybe put a little bit more kind of right down in here, and then we're gonna get this guy sewed up. Oh, one last thing I guess I forgot to do is I'm gonna drop some clay into those testicles and fill those back out again. Because obviously we want our Cowboy Squirrel to be riding a stallion. Go. That filled out again. And then, like I said, I'm just going to put a little bit of this just kind of on either side here just to help fill that part out. And now we're going to start sewing. Okay, it's time for us to start positioning this rabbit. So we want him in kind of a bucking position, so I'm just going to put him on this board for now. So he dries and then I'll make a nicer board later on, but so I want him to kind of kicking like he's a rodeo horse, right? So I'm going to start by pinning the front feet. Kind of extend those out a little bit. Okay. Now, as for the back, kind of want them kind of how he is, I guess. Doesn't have to be totally even. I'm just gonna pin that pin the tail up here a little bit. Hair falling off. And now when you start working that clay, kind of getting those feet looking a little more like they should be. Make sure they're not twisted or anything. More like that. Same with this one. Work that down there like that. Make sure the heel is right where it's supposed to be. So we'll finish those feet. There, it's looking pretty good. He's looking like a bucking horse. Alright, last thing I'm going to do for today is get those ears kind of pinned up. So for that, I'm going to grab some wire. Usually I have it in my pins, but I don't. Oh, there they are. So I got these kind of longer pins. I'm just gonna go kind of right down through the ear butt. Like that. And that'll kind of hold those ears in position. Back a little bit. That looks more aggressive, like he's bucking. So it's looking really good. The eyes are looking good. So Harold kind of looks mad right now because he's still a little bit wet. So we're gonna let this dry for a little bit first. I'll give that a blow dry and kind of fluff him up once he stiffens up a little bit more. But so far I'm pretty happy with how that is looking. Okay, I did some tweaking on this guy, kind of got him positioned a little bit better. So you gave him a blow dry, that fluffed him up, got rid of all that matted hair, so he's looking really good. So at this point, he just needs to sit and dry. While he's doing that, I'm going to get started on the squirrel. So I'm going to get him all mounted up and ready to get positioned, and then we'll take it from there. I've got our cowboy squirrel all done up and ready to go, kind of roughly in the position he's going to be in. So to mount him onto the rabbit, I left these wires at the bottom of his feet quite long so they can kind of get pinned into the rabbit. So I'm going to start by sharpening those. And then as far as positioning him, I think he's going to go right about here. So I'm going to start by getting that wire kind of ready to stick in on both sides. Before I put any glue or anything, I want to make sure that's where I want it to be. So I'm going to pin those all the way in. And take a look at this guy. It's looking pretty good like that, I think. So what I'm going to do is take some glue, kind of put it on that pin, and then stick it back into the rabbit on both sides. So let's pull that pin out, put some glue all along it, and push it back in, and that's going to help lock that in. And then I'm going to take some more, and put it right under Squirrel's butt, kind of on the back of the rabbit there. And then kind of that'll help hold him in place there too. And then I'm going to take this string, put that around the rabbit's neck, and have the squirrel holding that. So, same thing, I'm going to take some of that glue, just put that right in the palm of the squirrel's hand, kind of up on the fingers. And then put the string through there and just close the hand on it. And the extra glue you can kind of get rid of. Then you got to make sure we're going to let that glue dry first. I'm actually going to put a tiny bit of glue here and kind of pin that rope back a little bit so it looks a little more like he's really pulling on it and the rope's kind of swinging behind him. I'm going to grab a little clamp. I'm going to put a little clamp on there just to hold his hands tight so it's really good and tight, like he's really hanging on to that. And once that glue's dry, I'm going to adjust that arm and pull it so this is super tight as well. That illusion like he's actually riding this rabbit and pulling up on him. This hand here I've left kind of up in like a normal rodeo position. I've left the wire coming out of the hand as well just to help hold that hand up in place while it dries, and we'll clip that off after it's done. So I'm going to go grab that little clamp to put on there and we'll let that dry. While we're waiting for that guy to dry, I've built a base. It's pretty basic, just a 1x6 with a little frame around it. Some of the things I do when I'm building these, I usually put a little spacer so that the trim pieces are up a little bit lower than the actual middle of the base, and that way when I have my wires coming through here to anchor the taxidermy mount to the base, I have a little bit of room underneath here if the wires happen to be sticking out a little bit. It's not going to make the base wobbly, so you can see maybe 3/16 or 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't take much, just a little bit, so that I have a little bit of wiggle room with the wires underneath there. So what I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to put some grass in here to make it kind of look like he's riding the rabbit across the field. So to do that, I'm going to take just some basic craft glue, put a bit of that in there. Doesn't take a whole lot, and just spread it all through the whole inside of here. You can see I've left a bit of a lip there too, probably just over 1/4 of an inch high. So I'm going to make sure that glue goes all the way throughout the entire inside here. All the way to the edges and the corners. Spread that around. Just like that. And then I've got in this box, every fall and every spring, I go around the yard and all the dead grass, I rake it all up. I put it into a box and let it dry. So this has been drying for quite a while. And I just take that and I will just stick it into that glue. And there's no science to this whatsoever. It is literally just stuffing this dead grass any which way you feel like. You should try not to make it too uniform because then it doesn't look quite as good in my opinion. Some people might disagree, but that's the way I like the way it looks. And I'll just make sure I go and get this all over the whole surface. It's a good idea to make sure that you darken the wood underneath it before you do this. Like I've stained this with a little bit darker brown, but if you're using just natural wood without any stain on it, sometimes it'll show up through the grass a little bit and doesn't look quite right. So try and make sure it looks the proper color underneath before you do this. What I'm going to do after I let this dry is I'll take some matte clear coat and I'll spray that all with a matte clear coat, and that helps kind of lock it in a little bit and keeps it stuck together. So that definitely helps keep it in there. And if you need to, you can always add some more. You can always put some more glue and add some more grass on it if you aren't happy with the way it looks. But this is the easiest way I've found to kind of make a quasi-natural looking habitat for an animal to walk on. And it's very, very cost effective. Like, it cost me the cost of the glue and a can of clear coat after the glue dries. I just keep kind of mashing this down in there to make sure that as much of it's touching that white glue as I can get. And kind of push it off the frame just so it's not sticking out much past. If you have a little bit, again, it's personal preference. I like to try and keep it inside the frame as much as I can. You can always go back with scissors too and cut some of it if you have long pieces that are sticking out. But, yeah, so I'm gonna let this dry at this point. We'll hit it with that clear coat and then kind of give it a tap after that, and anything that's loose will come off, and everything else should be pretty well locked into place. And yeah, that's all there is to making the base for this guy. So let this dry, we'll get that spray with the clear coat, and then we'll check and see how the actual rabbit and squirrel are doing, and we'll put them on here, and it'll be getting close to being done this project. So I sprayed this stuff last night before I went to bed with that clear coat, and you can see there's some stuff going to come off of it, a little bit of dirt, things like that, but overall the grass is holding its position. If you're worried about it, you can always spray it again, but I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking. Like, I usually give it a few taps and break loose any of the stuff that didn't glue down, but you can see overall it looks pretty good. So I'm happy with that. If you're worried about it, like I said, you can always spray it again and kind of lock some of that other stuff in. And most of the stuff that's falling off of here is just dirt that's stuck to that grass, so I'm not too worried about it at this point. I think at this point we've got all of them. Okay, so I'm just gonna get all these pins cleaned up, and then we'll start doing some touch-up paint. Start, I'm just gonna take a little bit of black, just around the edge of the eyeball, kind of like maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so in from the eyeball, kind of on the eyelid. I'm just going to touch that up with black and darken it back up, because that part of the eye typically will dry out and kind of lighten up as the animal's drying. So just going to touch up around there. Helps bring back a little bit of life into those eyes. They don't look so dull. Don't go crazy with it. You don't want to make it look like your animal's wearing eyeliner. You just want to kind of touch up just around the edge of it. where the leather is turned, that sometimes it'll kind of turn a dull gray color or white even. Just touch that up so that doesn't happen. Same with the squirrel. You gotta be careful with the squirrel when you're doing this because there's white hair or fur all around the eye. And you don't want to get that painted. Just, again, just that little eyelid around it is all you're looking to paint. For the ears, I'm just going to take my airbrush with some light pink and just very lightly dust that inside there. Better. Same on this one. You don't want to go too much, you want just enough that it kind of takes that dull look away. We are at the point now where I'm going to actually move this guy over to the base. So first thing I'm going to do is figure out where I want to put him. Maybe about in there. Kind of figure out where you want to put the first one. Probably putting the grass on first. Sometimes it's easy to lose your hold, but just find it like that. So put him like that. That makes my other hole right about there. So what I'm going to do is put a bit of super glue on the bottom part of the foot and the bottom part of the wire. That's going to help lock that into place. And then I'm going to put that down through the hole, if I can find it. So now, let me get it here. So what I'm going to do is pull down on that wire pretty hard and then give it a bend like that. And then bend it a little bit more. Just try to get rid of this, I guess. That. So what I'm going to do is try and bend the end of this wire in kind of like a 90. Like that. And then pull it and bend that around. Hammer that into place, and it'll actually lock it into place. And then I can kind of bend the feet up like that to gets them back at the angle I want them to be at. So at this point, I'm going to let that all dry with the super glue, because the wire on the one foot wasn't quite long enough to go all the way through, but the super glue on the wire will lock it into place in that hole regardless. So this one I'm going to let this guy kind of dry till that super glue is all dry, and then we're going to fluff him up, and this guy will be done. Here is our completed rodeo squirrel. This guy was definitely a very fun project. I'll be making more of these guys in the future.